personnel, including the pilot. And the only weapons she mentioned were knives and cardboard cutters. You would think if there were a machine gun or any other kind of gun that she would have mentioned that. But the only weapons she mentioned were knives and cardboard cutters. I asked Ted if she made any reference to nationality of the hijackers or any suspicions about the motive, and he said she made no reference to that at all. They didn't have a whole lot of time to talk. She said to Ted, "What do I tell the pilot to do?" Somewhat typical of Barbara, a take charge kind of person. But there was nothing they could do. They're all trapped in the back of the plane.
I was actually there and walked away. I mean, I had to dive underneath. I ran backwards with the camera just pointed behind me, away from the scene, and saw that, you know, have heard about clouds enveloping people and oxygen being depleted, and I just dove under the biggest emergency response vehicle that I could see, stayed there for about 30 seconds, saw nothing but pitch black. I started having difficulty breathing. I thought my oxygen was starting to dwindle, and there was a moment when I said, well, this might be it. And my only chance is to get out and start walking north.
Well, we're very grateful to you. Very grateful you're okay, and that you took these.
We appreciate that. Again, Barbara Olson, one of the 200 plus passengers on 4 different airliners, and we have no reason to believe that any of those people survived the crashes today here in New York, in Pennsylvania, outside of Pittsburgh, and at the Pentagon in Washington. We still do not have a very good feel, to be perfectly honest. Today, how many of those will survive, we do not yet know. Judy?
And Aaron, this may be another point where we want to say, God bless the souls of those who have lost their lives today or who are dying.
It depends on how much direct proof we have of the involvement of the countries. If we have direct proof that these actions were supported by state-sponsored terrorism policy, then we may very well want to do that. A lot would depend on what we find out. I've always been of the view, quite frankly, as terrorism has begun to build and as the risk to the United States has increased, that we ought to take a hard look at the provision of U.S. law that says we don't assassinate anybody. If we've got somebody out here masterminding an attack that kills 10,000 or 5,000 or 3,000 or whatever it is, innocent Americans in America,
we'll hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts.
A couple other points. The 2 airlines involved are the 2 largest airlines in this country, making them obviously 2 symbols of American power, United Airlines and American Airlines. And all 4 planes that were used by the terrorists were filled to capacity with fuel. These were cross-country flights. That was no accident. When these planes are fueled to go from points on the East Coast to the West Coast, they carry tens of thousands of gallons of fuel. What that means is they literally are flying bombs. When these
died, so it's very difficult. We have no eyewitnesses as to what took place on the individual planes. But again, speculation would suggest that a person or persons on those planes took control of them in some way. Unconfirmed reports suggest that it may have been possible that multiple people were involved in taking over at least one of those planes. We also have received unconfirmed reports in regard to the possibility of some crew members being stabbed on another plane. All of those, again, are unconfirmed reports that are all being checked by law enforcement. Every local, state, and federal law enforcement in the country at this point is trying to find out everything they can about this.
To this issue of what is an appropriate response and how to bring the perpetrators to justice.
But I think we can.
National tragedy. For more information, please turn to your TV news channel. In light of these events, QVC will be temporarily suspending its broadcast.
And in the hallways, it was pandemonium. It quickly filled with smoke. And as you can see behind me, Katie, a scene that is eerily reminiscent of the federal building bombing in Oklahoma City, with the gaping hole and the slanting floors that collapsed in on each other. And for those who don't know,
Washington, certainly in New York, have been pulling together
in Europe for that report, but Tony Blair, the British Prime Minister, puts it as aptly as anybody in the world could put it today. We are now confronting, and have for some long period of time, a new and different evil in the world by people who are totally fanatics. I think that was precisely what he said.
People had to be involved in what happened today.
The World Trade Center. He finished reading to the children, and a few minutes later he made a statement, and then got on a plane and said he was heading back to Washington. But as it turned out, the president did not go to Washington. Security concerns were paramount here, and he was taken instead to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. And on the ground in Barksdale, he taped a statement, which was later played back for us, and this is what
victims. I got to tell you, I got out and
for these cowardly acts. I've been in regular contact with the Vice President, Secretary of Defense, the National Security Team, and my cabinet. We have taken all appropriate security precautions to protect the American people. Our military at home and around the world is on high alert status.
I just talked to her on the phone, and those kids are going through agony tonight. They don't know if they're okay.
The Washington Post on a day that we will not soon forget, obviously, and as you mentioned, President Bush is in fact headed back to the White House at this hour on a day when 3 hijacked planes struck 2 really landmark symbols of American financial and military power. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center basically vanished from the New York skyline within hours after being struck by 2 jetliners. Here in Washington, in the nation's capital, the Pentagon, headquarters for America's military, took a direct hit. The apparent terrorist attacks are the first real national security crisis in the 8-month presidency of George W. Bush.
We will show the world that we will pass this test. God bless.
Planes have been ordered to land at the nearest airport.
A nationwide appeal for blood has gone out. In several cities, the phone networks have been frozen. Here on the eastern seaboard, the motorways are clogged with traffic. If it was the terrorists' intention to sow confusion and panic in America, at least on this day, it would seem they succeeded. Tom Carver, BBC News, Washington.
I'm joined now by Don Morrison, the European editor of Time magazine. Welcome. Don, for a moment, just take your journalist hat off and tell me what it's like being an American on a day like today.
It's difficult to generalize about a nation of 250 million people, except perhaps at a moment like this, of great national trauma, a presidential assassination, the Challenger space shuttle disaster, Pearl Harbor. Americans, as your correspondent in New York,
how you were going to stop the others.
The Proverbs 31 woman all the time. So I need that little bit of time for myself so I don't get resentful, so I don't sit there and say,
I'll see what goes on in this meeting in here, but I think the bottom line is we were basically caught flat-footed and we've lost a lot of people, and that's sad.
Who's responsible, Senator?
Well,
I'm written from New York, and watching this really hurts me.
Thank you. The Washington Post and the Washington Times both have put out a special late afternoon edition. Of course, that's not normally. Both of them are morning newspapers. They both have a special edition.
he has more options and perhaps a more
for you. Just to give you a sense of what's happening at the World Trade Center, firefighters have abandoned their attack on the fires in the downtown Manhattan area. It's just a complete war zone. Unfortunately, I'm hearing some reports that people are not being allowed to evacuate residences and businesses that are there because they're concerned